So the last couple of weeks, we have asked these questions. What are goals and why should we set them? And then last week, we talked about how do I determine goals and where do I start? So we learned that a goal is the fastest way to get from where you are to where you want to be. Okay, you see something in the future, you want to attain that, you want to achieve that, you want to become that, whatever it is, you have a vision, and then you back from there, you get that vision, because clarity of vision brings clarity of life. You get that vision, and it has to break down to goals, because without goals, a vision is just a dream. But without habits, a goal is just a wish. So week one, I thought about it this way as I've been kind of preparing for today. Week one was kind of like real exciting, like use my imagination, like real exciting. The last week was kind of the same way a little bit, but kind of getting down to the nitty gritty. This week, I'm going to be honest with you, it can be kind of boring, right? Because if we're going to attain the vision that we have for our life and reach the goals that it takes to get to that vision, we have to get boring. Because we're not going to reach our goals if we don't implement habits that happen day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, constantly over time, monotonously. If we don't implement that, we're not going to get to where we want to go. So what have we done? We decided what our steak life looks like. What is that? We talked about steaks versus hot dogs, right? We've all agreed that, we'd all would rather have a steak than a hot dog. Except tomorrow night I'm going to the Bulls game and it's affordable eat nights, and hot dogs are only $2, so I'm gonna be eating some hot dogs tomorrow night, which is okay. But I'm making that choice and planning strategically around that. But we've established what our steak life is. Then we looked at our steak life and said, what stands in the way? Whatever it is, it's fear. All right, and we've turned that fear into a list. How do I tackle this fear that is standing in my way, this obstacle? Okay, and then from there, we've written down 3 to 5 goals this past week. I hope you did, in present tense. Okay, I shared with you my goals that are in present tense. I got them listed on my phone here, and I would love to hear, if any of you are willing, I'd love to hear 1 or 2 of the goals that you have created for yourself in the last week or so in present tense. Would anybody like to share?
Create financial peace.
Create financial peace. That's good. That's future tense, but I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
I'll let it slide this time.
Thanks, sir.
The difference would be, instead of create financial peace, I have created financial peace, right? Training your mind to have that I have won mentality. Anybody else want to share one? Yes, ma'am. Complete Miller Health Coaching. Mental health coaching. Okay.
No, correct. Certification.
I love that. I love that. I did a presentation just on Saturday with my kids volunteers about helping them to kind of communicate with kids and teens who are dealing with mental health issues and anxiety and despair. And that's a lot of very important stuff. Anybody else have anything you want to share? Goals that are part of that steak life that you want and you're starting to implement? One of Adam's goals is to finally be clever in golf one day.
That's awesome.
Goals had to be achieved.
It's very, it's very aspirational, we'll say that. I have 0 room to talk. I don't know why I'm joking about this, but whatever. But I hope you don't have to share, but I hope that you have began to create some of these goals in your life. And if you have, what we do today is going to be the format for how you're going to get from here to reaching your goal to accomplishing and seeing your vision fulfilled in your life. Okay? And we are going to have to get a little boring. You see, goals are about the results that you want to achieve. Makes sense, right? I want to have this. I want to get this. I want to complete this. But systems, or we could also say habits or behaviors, are about the processes that lead to those results. You see, in a way, we could take goals, crumple it up and throw it out the window. Because if we just stop at goals, there's some real problems that I want to share with you. If we just stop at goals, we have to understand that winners and losers both have the same goal. Right? Any baseball fans in the room? I'm a huge baseball fan. Atlanta Braves fan. We won the World Series last year. It was awesome. Whenever the season started, the team that finished last in Major League Baseball, which I believe was the Baltimore Orioles, they had the same goal as did the Atlanta Braves. Except one of them won the World Championship. The other one was the worst team in the league. What was different? Their systems, how they develop players, how they practice, how they bring people up, drop people down to the minors, the trades that they made, the deals that they make, the choices that they make with their money and different things like that. What the fan experiences they create. I used to live in Baltimore. A Baltimore Orioles game is so boring. So boring. Now, granted, the Orioles are really, if any Orioles fans are in here, I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but the games are really boring, partially because the Orioles are really bad. But Braves games, on the other hand, awesome. Best fan experience in baseball, in my opinion, because they have intentionally created that for their fans because it's an investment. And how does that transpond into the success of the team? Well, I mean, the players get kind of hyped up whenever all the lights go out in the stadium and everybody pulls out their phones and they start doing the chop with their cell phone cameras when a new pitcher is coming in to warm up from the other team. It is like one of the most intimidating things in baseball. And they have intentionally created that. It's a system that they've put in place. Why? To accomplish a goal of creating a good fan experience, to creating a difficult atmosphere for the other team to play. Same thing in your life. Winners and losers, we have the same goals. Okay? We can all make a goal list on our phone or on a piece of paper or whatever. And whether every single one of us, we can have that list. We can have goals. Some of us will win, some of us will lose. But we all have the same goals. So if we stop at goals, that's a problem. Next, achieving a goal is only a momentary change. If all we're doing is just trying to accomplish goals, that's just momentary. And cool, you can check off a list. I can check off the list of goals that I have on my phone and whatnot. But if that's all I do and that's all I'm trying to accomplish, that is just momentary change. That hasn't really changed behavior of who I am. Next, sometimes goals restrict your happiness, which sounds counterproductive, right? Because we've talked about our steak life, and living a steak life sounds really good and sounds like it would make me happy. But think about it this way. What if your steak life is like, I want to be in the best shape of my life? And your goal is, I'm going to stay on this diet, really, really, really strict. Has anybody ever been on a diet that made you really happy?
Pizza diet.
Pizza diet, seafood diets, my man. If I see it, I'm gonna eat it. Like, that's just the way it is. No, those things don't make us happy. Why? Because they're restrictive. So sometimes if we just stop at goals, our happiness is restricted. But then goals are at odds with long-term progress. Goals are at odds with long-term progress. This ties in very well with achieving a goal is only a momentary change. If all we're focused on is accomplishing a goal, then we're not changing anything in the long run, because we could accomplish that goal, never do anything like that again, and move on, and nothing has changed long-term in our life. It was momentary, it was short-term, that's all it was. So if we stop there at goals, then we've come up empty, we've come up with nothing. We've been completely unfulfilled. So here's the difference. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Much of the content, really about 99% of the content we're going to go over today is in a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and that's a direct quote from him. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. You can have the loftiest goals in the world, but if you don't have systems to get there, you will fail. Guaranteed every time. It doesn't matter how good, how awesome your goals are. You're not going to rise to that level unless your systems match that level. So we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And here's the thing, the quality of our lives depends vitally on the quality of our habits. If we are going to live a life that is high quality, achieving goals, accomplishing vision, then the habits that we have to match that quality. If we want to be something, to do something that we have never done, which is what the stake life is, right? Why do we want a stake life? Because it's something that we haven't gotten to have yet. Why did I shared 2 weeks ago that me and my wife are really looking forward to going to the Angus Barn when we move to the Raleigh-Durham area. Why? Because it sounded awesome. All you can eat cheese before the meal comes, like, come on, that's amazing. The environment, the steak, like it was a great meal, it was a great experience. We want to achieve and attain to something like that. So if we want something that we've never had, if we want to do something we've never done, you have to be somebody that you've never been. You have to become something that you have never become. You have to make choices that you have never made. You have to step out and do things in places and in ways that you've never done them before. You see, your behavior is a direct reflection of your identity. And your identity is a direct reflection of your behavior. I'm a pastor. As a pastor, I am a committed follower of Christ. So you know what? The Bible teaches me, the whole book of James is all about, look, if you're changed on the inside, this is what your outside is going to look like. You're going to do this, you're not going to do this, you're going to do this, you're not going to do this. It's not a list of rules, it's not a list of do's and don'ts. It's saying if you've been changed on the inside, this is what you're going to, this is naturally how you're going to react. If this is your identity, this is your behavior. And if this is your behavior, then sure enough, that must be your identity. So what we have to do, we have to match up what our identity is and our behaviors are, and we have to point them in the direction of where our goals and our vision wants to take us. We have to align those. And most likely, we're going to have to change some behaviors. In thinking of what your stake life is, does anybody have to not change a single thing in your life to get there? No, because it's something that we don't have. It's something we've never done. We have to change something to get there. We have to do something different. So, 4 laws of behavior change. 4 laws of behavior change. These are very practical. Number 1, make it obvious. Make the behavior change obvious. Some key cues to implement in your life are at a particular time. I want to do this at a particular time in a particular location. James Clear frames it as this. He calls it an implementation intention. And it says this: I will blank at blank in blank. I will read a book at 12 o'clock in my office. And every day at 12 o'clock when I'm in my office, what do? I read a book. I will put my dish in the dishwasher. Put my dish in the dishwasher in the kitchen when I'm done eating. You see, it's implementing that behavior, that habit that accomplishes a long-term goal of keeping your kitchen clean, not letting the dishes pile up, or accomplishing my goal of reading 10 books in a year. If I'm going to read 10 books in a year, I can't get to December 25th and be like, oh, man, I got to get 10 books in. Because I have not created the habit, I have not created the behavior of being a reader. But if I create habits of being a reader, at 12 o'clock in my office, I'm going to read a book. When I create that habit every day, then now my behaviors, my identity is somebody who reads at 12 o'clock in his office every day. What does that lead to? Reading X number of books. A really important key phrase to remember, or key term to remember, is something called habit stacking. Adam and I talked a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, just personally. Habit stacking basically says this: after I do this, I will do this. Okay, so we all have current habits in our lives, right? So maybe you want to implement something new in your morning routine. Well, what is something you already do in your morning routine? I hope brushing our teeth would be one of those things, right? I'm not going to ask for a raise of hands because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but you know, sometimes we forget. It's okay. It's all right. So after I brush my teeth in the morning, I will insert new habit. So every day when you brush your teeth, you know the next thing you need to do is the new habit that you're trying to implement. And after a while, it will become old hat. I brush my teeth and then I do this every single morning. Every single morning. Habit stacking, taking things that you already have in your life, because we all have habits. Good, bad, productive, unproductive, whatever they are. However you want to frame them, whatever you want to call them. We have habits in our lives that we can stack the new habits that we want to on top of. And if I'm already in this place doing this and it makes sense to do this with it, well, hey, I'm just going to tag it on and make it happen. And now you've created a new behavior, a new habit in your life. So number one, the first law of behavior change is make it obvious. And just so we're clear, this is from the book Atomic Habits. It is scratching the surface. Like, there is so much rich, good information in that book. I would highly, highly, highly recommend you get it. Atomic Habits. Author is James Clear. Like, we are literally just, we might as well just be opening up the front cover today. But it is phenomenal. Can't recommend it enough. Number two, make it attractive. First one is make it obvious, but then make it attractive. Why? We like attractive things, right? Does anybody like unattractive things? Anybody ever gone on a, you know, if you're a good millennial or a Gen Z person, maybe you've gone on a dating website and been like, I want to look for the most unattractive people on the app. That doesn't make sense, right? I heard a comedian talk about how if you, in this day and age, if you're trying to date just like regularly and not online, like there's something wrong with you. So you just walk around in public, like looking for the attractive people. No, you get online and do it. So if you're looking for tips, like, hey, go online, look for attractive people, you know, whatever. Or unattractive people, whatever you like to do. But most of the time, we like things that are attractive, right? So what do we want to do? We want to pair an action that you want to do with an action that you need to do. Okay? I want to eat dinner every night, but I need to clean up the kitchen. So what if you implement a habit that says, before we sit down to eat, while everything was cooking, we'll have already been washing the dishes and getting everything clean, so that whenever we sit down to eat, the only thing that's left to clean is the dish that we took the food out of and the dish that we ate on. Now you've already implemented a habit, because you can't do one thing that you want to do without doing the other thing that you need to do. And it makes it attractive. If I get to do that thing, then I get to do the next thing. The habit stacking model in this would be, after I do this habit that I need to do, I will get to do this habit that I want to do. And one of my favorite things to do is watch Atlanta Braves baseball. I watch it almost every single night. That might sound like a boring life to you. There's nothing more exciting than watching Atlanta Braves baseball every night of my life, okay? That's just me. But what if I limit myself to watching the game after I've done everything around the house that needs to get done? Maybe you're picking up on some things in my life that struggle, right? We don't have kids. We have one little dog who thinks he's like the king of the world, and sometimes our house gets messy. Whatever. It drives me crazy though. But it doesn't always drive me crazy enough to do something bad. Why? Because the Braves are on. So what if I limit myself to only watching the Braves after I do X, Y, Z around the house? I make my habits attractive because once I get to do that, I get a reward. I get to go and do that. The more attractive the opportunity, the more likely it will become a habit. So we make it obvious, we make it attractive, then we make it easy. The most effective form of learning is not practice, it's planning. Has anybody ever taken a class and at the very first day of class, the teacher or whatever gave you a syllabus and said, this is everything you're going to learn. And then they pulled out the final exam and handed it to you. That would be a very ineffective way of taking that class, right? But you got all the information that you needed to know on your syllabus. This is everything that we're going to cover for the rest of the year. But there was no learning, there was no implementation. There was no practice of those concepts for them to really get into our minds. The most effective form of learning is practice, not the planning. You can have vision, you can set goals all you want to, but if you don't practice doing things that are going to help you attain those certain things in your life, you're not going to get there. You see, a habit is just an automatic action that's developed through repetition. Doing it over and over and over and over and over again. I want you to kind of audit yourself. When you get to work tomorrow morning, I want you to notice what you do. Because it's what you do every single day. You all have a little routine. What do you set down first? Where do you go first? Who do you say hi to first? What is the first things that you do? And you'll find that you're already a creature of habit. So let's leverage those automatic actions to help us to reach our goals. You see, when things are automated, they're very easy. Right? Automatic bill pay is like the best thing in the world to me. So I'm not going to worry about it. If I had to worry about it, I'd forget. I'd have collections calling me up and be like, hey, dude, you haven't paid your electric bill in like 3 years. Not bad. I thought it was on autographs. That's never happened to me, by the way. Because as soon as I got married and had an electric bill on my own, like I set up autographs, so it doesn't happen. But automation is easy. So the best way to make a habit easy, make it automatic. Because if we do something long enough, over time, those repeated actions will rewire our brain pathways to default to the new habit. Over time, our brain pathways will rewire to automatically, after I'm done eating, I'm going to clean this kitchen before I sit down and watch the baseball game. My brain's got a long way to go, let me tell you. But over time, over repetition, and can I tell you, it doesn't really matter how much time you spend on it. What matters is the repetition that you spend on it. Because you can do an action for 3 years, but in that 3 years, you've only performed the action 5 times. But if you do the action 365 times 3 every day during that 3 years, it's not about how long you've been doing the action. It's about how many times you have done the action. And you have then developed an automated habit in your life. So we make it obvious, we make it attractive, we make it easy. Lastly, we make it satisfying. You remember when Snickers put satisfied or satisfies or satisfy or whatever on the back of their thing? Why did they do that? Because now, whenever I am at the golf course and I'm hungry and want a little snack after I've been out in the sun or whatever, I think, you know, Snickers is kind of a satisfying thing. And then I go and buy a Snickers and I eat it. Not that Snickers is any more satisfying than anything else there, but subconsciously they have trained our minds to think that their Snickers bar satisfies us. And we desire that reward. We like to do things and have things that satisfy. The cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. And what is immediately punished is avoided. If any of you have raised kids, you understand this, right? I used to coach baseball. If I saw a kid do something proper, correct, good, I would immediately give them positive feedback on that. If they did something bad, I would immediately give them negative feedback. Why? Because I don't want them to repeat those things. So what do we have to do? We have to celebrate small wins. Celebrate small wins every day. Reward yourself for accomplishing the habits that you accomplished that are going to help you to reach your goal and take your steps towards your vision. Reward yourself. Celebrate the small little wins. If we make it obvious, if we make it attractive, if we make it easy, those three will all increase the odds that the behavior will be performed this time. But if we make something satisfying, if we make it fulfilling, then we increase the odds that it will be completed next time. And we'll want to do it again and again and again. James Clear goes deep into how dopamine literally comes into effect, and it's not the accomplishment of the habit that triggers the dopamine reaction in our brains. That feel-good sense. It's the anticipation of completing the action. He talks about when people get hooked on drugs or things like that, it's not the drug that performs the dopamine. It's once the brain knows what the drug has to offer, then the thought and having the drug in the hand about to do it, that's when the dopamine is released. And then there's the crash afterwards and the unfulfilling and the facade that those negative things bring into the people who make those decisions lives. But when we are trying to accomplish habits and we train our brains that these habits that we have in our lives are rewarding and satisfying, then the very thought and the anticipation of doing it is going to excite us. And it's going to make it repeated over and over and over again. Obvious, attractive, and easy help it to happen this time. Satisfying will help it to happen next time. So what are some practical tools that you can use to kind of implement all this stuff? I have kind of brain dumped for the last 3 weeks, and I hope you all have picked up on some little things that you can implement in your lives. But what are some practical things? Number one, keep a list of where you're going in front of you. I have my goals in a screenshot on my phone. I made it in notes, put it in present tense, put check marks beside it, and it says 2022 goals, and I see it every single day because I look at this thing way too much. I see it every day, and I read through them every day. Now, do I do something to help me accomplish these? Honestly, no. But I should, because I should have habits every day that are pointing me to these things. So there are different habits and behaviors that I need to implement or modify in my life that will help me to get to these things. Keep a list of where you're going in front of you. Put it on the bathroom mirror. Put it on the sticky note by your computer, wherever it might be, whatever it is for you that you know you're going to see it every day and be reminded of where you're going. Next, use a habit tracker. There's 10 habits you want to make sure you do in a day. Have a habit, and every time you do that habit, put a little check. Give yourself a smiley face. Put yourself like a little star sticker on your, like we did in elementary school or whatever, you know, whatever it is that's a little bit fulfilling and rewarding to you. Track those habits. And if you miss once, it's okay. Jump back on it the next day. Get right back into it. Don't allow yourself to miss twice. Thirdly, utilize an accountability partner. Accountability partners can be intimidating. They can be invasive. Those things are good. Okay, we need accountability partners. We need somebody in our lives who's going to call us on our crap, right? True. Most of the time, we want people really who say, man, I really want you guys before I leave to be like, man, you did such a good job. Aaron, you're so awesome. You're doing so great. But you know what I really need in my life? After I do something like this, or after I stand up and give a presentation at church in front of volunteers or something, like I need my wife who tells me like, you really need to stop saying so much. You really need to stop doing this. And I want to be like, but what about all of the positive things? She's like, well, yeah, that was good, but you really need to do this. That's accountability. It's somebody who will encourage us in what we do well, but call us out in what we can do better. And call us out when we need to change. We need an accountability partner. So what's our next steps? Number one, it's real exciting. Get real boring. get real monotonous. If you want your steak life, you're gonna have to get really boring. And you know what, if that means saying, no, I can't go hang out, no, I can't do this, no, I can't do that, no, I can't come to this party, no, I can't come to that function, whatever it is. Be that. Do you want your steak life or not? If you want your steak life, you're gonna have to get boring. You're gonna have to get boring to the point to where these monotonous habits that happen every day in your life, that if you change, if you don't do them, you're not gonna get there. They just have to be there. And you have to keep rolling. And then after you get boring, one of these days you're gonna look up and guess what? You're gonna be a winner. Because you've accomplished that goal. And then you've accomplished the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and then eventually you're gonna live your steak life. You're going to have reached and attained the vision that you had for the best life that you could possibly have. Get boring, be a winner, and thirdly, just do it all over again. Because if not, then we're just setting goals that are just achieving something for a moment, momentary change. But we don't want momentary change. We want long-term, lasting results, right? We want something that lasts in our life, that changes the trajectory of where we're going. Maybe your family background is terrible. My dad grew up in an alcoholic's home. As a kid, my grandfather would take my dad to the bar with him. He'd throw him in the corner to play pinball or whatever game there was in 1969 when my dad was a kid and whatnot. And all day long, my grandpa would drink. My dad determined that wasn't going to be his life. He was drunk. My grandfather would take them home, get in fights with my grandmother, throw plates, lamps, you name it. Terrible life. Terrible. My dad grew up, got offered to play Division III football at a small college in Ohio. He was a very good baseball player as well. He made it on an all-star team his senior year. And the head coach of Ohio State University happened to be at the game. My dad I think he hit a home run, threw out a couple guys trying to steal second base. He was a catcher. And Ohio State's head coach came up to him after the game and I said, look, man, I don't have any scholarships for you, but I want you have a place on the team if you'll come and walk on. So my dad, from this little town on the Ohio River, from this alcoholic's home, made choices in his life that put him in a position to now go to Ohio State University and play baseball, where he was going to get a phenomenal education. And for 3 years, he played baseball while he was getting his education to be an educator and a coach someday. And after that third year, he was really in love with my mom. And if he played baseball his fourth year, he wasn't going to get to marry my mom on time, and he wasn't going to get a job on time. So what did he do? He made decisions that changed the trajectory of his life. He quit baseball. He did his student teaching. He was able to marry my mom in the time frame that they wanted. They got married. Fast forward several years, and here I come. Fast forward a couple more years, my dad surrenders his life to the ministry. And all I've ever known is seeing the example of my father who has given his whole life that I've known him to serving Jesus Christ with this, which has changed the trajectory of my life. And it all came down to little decisions. Little decisions. My dad saw the habits of alcoholism every single day in his childhood. And he decided that he wanted something different. So to have something different, he had to be something different. And he was. And for that, provided something different for me. And I wouldn't be standing here today in front of you all as a pastor at a church in Durham, North Carolina, and speaking to like-minded, faith-minded people on how we can set goals and live the best life that we can possibly live into the potential that we possibly have in Christ, if it had not been for my dad's decision way back when. You see how decisions to create certain habits and avoid others can change the trajectory of your future? So I hope this has been a blessing to you all. I hope you've learned something. Look, when we do things, when you do things that you've never done habitually, you will change your wishes into goals. And you'll change your dreams into a vision that's attainable. Thank you all so much. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts? I'm looking at you. Because you came to fight 4 of them at me last week.
But you,
Let's give them a chance. Anybody have any thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, so, in teaching my kids to do things in a habit form, what I'm really trying to do, and it's interesting that you do this, you did this whole talk and you never brought up the word discipline. But it takes discipline, and the reason, and what happens is, the more you do things in a habit pattern, the more you establish that in your mind.
Mhm.
It's like building muscle.
Mhm.
You know, you can't, the only way you're gonna build muscle is to work at it.
Right.
And to help build up your disciplined muscles, you do things out of habit. And you'd be surprised, and I try to explain this to my kids, how many things in your life are more achievable because you've developed and appreciated the discipline within yourself to be able to know you can accomplish things over time.
Absolutely.
If you discipline yourself.
Absolutely. And that's where identity greatly comes into play, because I am someone who does this, right? That is a different way of saying I am disciplined in doing these things, right? They're natural reaction. When we're disciplined to do something, when we're presented with a situation, my natural reaction is to do insert whatever, right? When dad tells me to do something as a kid who is well disciplined, the natural reaction is to obey. That's great. That's great. And a great example of how these things can be applied in every area of our lives. As a parent, as an employee, as personal aspirations, whatever it might be, these things can be applied. Anybody else have anything? Either I'm really good because I answered every question you had, or the opposite, I'm really bad and you all are just completely uninterested, which.
what registered with me was the positive self-talk. Discipline, the word doesn't ring well, doesn't have to get like this, okay? However, positive self-talk, using words like habit, focusing on goals, it really depends on, the language that a person responds to.
Yeah.
So I think that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I am going to ask you, last time you shared that one of yours is that 6-pack,
Yeah,
not of soda, but your body. Now, making it, you said, make it, no, sorry. Make it satisfying.
mhm.
What did you put in place for that specific goal to make it satisfying and immediate and desirable reward?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Call me out, Dempsey. You want my wife's phone number and ask her? No, that's a really great question. And if I can be honest, of the goals that I have, that is probably the area where I have been the weakest. Because I make excuses for my health. And really that's what that is. It's a health goal, like whatever, an aesthetic goal, whatever, but it's a health goal. I want to be at a certain level of health, right? That's really my goal. And I make excuses for my health because I got sick, or these people wanted to go out to eat, or, whatever the excuse might be. So if I can be very transparent with you all, the disciplines, the habits that I have in my life are probably not where they need to be for that to be a reality for me.
What do you do to make it there?
What do I do to make them there? Implement the knowledge that I have been given of meal prepping,
Start with,
macronutrient implementation, implementing certain forms of cardiovascular exercise.
so how
It's
you were
a-
saying, like, with, okay, you brush your teeth. So after I brush my teeth, I'm gonna go on the treadmill for 10 minutes
Mhm.
and try to implement it that way.
Something like that, yeah. For me, a habit that I have is I go to the gym every morning. I get up at 5:15, leave for the gym around 5:45. I have two guys from our church that I work out with. And this morning, they were going to run a mile after we were done. Now, in fairness, I was crunched on time. My wife had to be at work a little bit earlier. We're down to one car because mine is in the shop. So I had to get home, get ready, and be able to take her to work. But that was my excuse this morning. Typically, my excuse was, I just don't like running. But I'm there. Why not add that habit onto the habit of me already being there? That would be how I stack those habits. And sure, there are going to be exceptions, but that's why we don't miss twice. We just allow ourselves
So
to
like
miss
we
once.
say, you don't like the running, what about implementing something else? Like walking on a treadmill, something like
Right,
that.
right. Whatever would fit into helping you accomplish, whatever discipline habit you need to help accomplish your goal. For me, it could be running, it could be walking for X amount of time, it could be doing a HIIT workout, whatever it might be. But that's something that's missing in my health regimen, that a discipline that I need, a habit that I need if I'm going to accomplish that goal.
And how has your accountability partner played into that?
So my accountability partner, I have a few of them in these areas. Okay, one of them is my best friend. He lives in Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah, he's actually from Radcliffe, which is like, Radcliffe's really ghetto. Real ghetto. It's a very interesting place. But he is in very, very good shape. Very good shape. He has lost over, I believe it's over 100 pounds. He's a big guy. He's 6'4". At one point in time, he was up over 300 pounds, and he's under 220 now. He has been lower, and he fluctuates, but he's very disciplined in these areas. So he is one accountability partner for me, and I will talk through my systems and my processes of how I'm trying to get there. And he's very much minded in these ways as well. So he helps me. Now, hands-on though, he's not here to make sure I get my butt up in the morning and go to the gym, right? So that's why I have two guys from my church that I go work out with, that they don't view me as one of their pastors. I'm just one of the guys we go to the gym together with. And one of them, he will say anything to me to make me feel bad about not being there. And it works. It works really well. It works really well on a couple different levels. Number one, I'm one of his pastors. So if I'm undisciplined, like, what ground do I have to try to lead him in any area? If he is disciplined, right? So for me, it works on a couple different levels. And so it's different for each person. And again, transparently, you called me out on my weakest area. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I needed that.
And I needed an example. So we go, I'm like, what worked for you? Getting out, looking for ideas.
Any other questions?
So one thing that book talks about, and Aaron didn't get a chance to talk too much about, is the idea of your environment too. So
Yes.
your environment oftentimes can shape your habit, good or bad.
Mhm.
They did a study in the book. It was like people that went to Vietnam, like 30% of people were addicted to heroin. And when they started looking at it, it was all these environmental factors. It was easy to get to. Chances are the guy next to you was doing it. You're away from your family. And then when a lot of these guys went back home, it's like 98% of them stopped doing it. Right? And people always would argue heroin's like a very addictive drug. Like you can't break off of it. But so I think for me, like I know certain like environmental cues and things like that. Like if I know that I want to stop drinking, but I go to a bar because I want to get their wings, I'm going to be more, my environment promotes drinking, or, like that, that's for me, like when I used to work out, I would always, it's kind of like habit stacking too, but I would always take a pre-workout, not because like, I don't even think it really did anything, but my mind would get ready for what's next of that environment going to work out. So, but I would absolutely, like you saying,
How do you train your mind though? My problem is smoking. Now I quit cold turkey numerous times, like the longest I lasted was over 2 years. and I just quit again last year. My problem is I gained the weight and my mind goes, well, as soon as I pick up that cigarette, I'm gonna lose it. So I pick that cigarette up and I lose all the weight. So what would I do to my mind on doing that?
It is interesting. In the book, actually, it uses the example of smoking. You remember
Yeah.
that? And he actually references another book that's very interesting. And it basically, we retrain our minds by basically telling our minds the truth of what that thing is actually doing for us. It actually tells us, well, it helps me lose weight or helps me relieve stress, whatever it might be. In reality, those things aren't true. It's actually having other very negative effects on our bodies. So it talks about how we repeatedly tell ourselves that, and it's basically just like self-talk, positive self-talk. And you're telling yourself the truth about what that activity or action or addiction is doing to you. And then it retrains and rewires your brain to think that way about that particular thing rather than
So
what
instead
it,
of
what it
thinking of
believes.
gaining the weight, think of what the cigarettes are doing to me.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, he put it in a good way too about smoking. He said if you ask like a smoker, like if you ask like, if I asked Aaron, like, are you a smoker? You'd say no, but Kim, if I asked you, you may say yeah. And instantly what you're doing is you're identifying
Mhm.
with that behavior. Because even though you want to break free from it,
I hate doing it, like
You
I
know.
literally, I don't even finish a whole cigarette, but it's my mind telling
Yeah.
me to do it.
I
Yeah.
think
So-
it's getting, like he said, like getting to that point where it's like, yeah, it's like it's playing a trick on you in a way, almost. It's like, well, Kim, you can quit smoking, you could absolutely do it, but you're like, well, I don't want to gain weight either.
Yeah, I don't get a weight and I don't get stressed and it's
Yeah.
like automatic, oh, I'm stressed, give me a
Mhm.
cigarette.
Yeah.
So,
You can frame it also as piggybacking off that. If someone were to, if you have quit smoking or you're trying to quit smoking, somebody says, hey, do you smoke? You can either say, no, I'm trying to quit, or no, I'm not a smoker. You see the difference in the mindset?
yeah.
The one gives you the capacity to still smoke,
Mhm.
right? The other one completely unidentifies yourself with that action, that activity, that habit, whatever it might be in your life that would apply to any of us. It completely detaches you from that identity. And over time, our brains are rewired.
Rewired.
to
Yeah, and the
identify
book
with that.
talks a lot too about cues, right? And it brings up
Mhm.
smoking with this is like certain things are a cue for you or a trigger for you to want a cigarette. And it may be a habit, like you may say, every time I walk the dog, after I walk the dog, I typically have a cigarette. And it talks about basically habit replacement. So whenever you have a cue to smoke, try switching that out with something else. Like, so
When I do
typically I
quit,
I
don't
really
stop
crave a
with it.
cigarette at this time. Trade it out with that, so that becomes the new habit, like it's like a habit swap almost,
Mhm.
you know, because I think like, what collectors that have smoked, it's like they find themselves based off of something, like something triggers it to happen, right? But that book, I would definitely check that book out, because it does talk about, it references smoking,
Yeah.
because I think they understand how powerful
Yeah.
of a habit that is.
Yeah.
It probably give you some good ways to think about it.
Yeah,
There's another thing too, when you're talked about the goal setting, it kind of, again, we use the word that Aggie has triggered a few things. To make a habit, you have to break a habit. And when you're setting goals, you have to be mindful of how you're gonna get there. But I'm the worst at this. I am the worst at this. I subscribed to Dave Ramsey and we were able to build our dream home 6 years ago. In the middle of COVID, my wife and I are sitting in this home that we entertained in. We had family coming down all the time. We're like, yes. We stood across from each other from like where I am to where you guys are there. Pardon me for saying this, but this is the gentleman that my grandfather knew growing up. What the Sam hell are we doing in this house? We can't, we're stuck.
speak up, I can't hear you over
Yeah, we're stuck in here. We can't, what are we doing? So we sold the house.
Hmm.
So it took us a while to sell the house, but we sold the house. So now we're in that mode and we're back to that being mindful.
Yeah.
Because the goals, we have a goal sheet and our goals are here. building a home was the new goal. Well, we crossed that out when just recently or selling the property that we purchased. So, but when you're setting goals, you have to be mindful of what's going on around you and then the triggers that really knock you off. Like my trigger, I turn right into, we were talking about this earlier, but I didn't share this. I have a automatic right turn into Bojangles when I get really picked off at 7 o'clock in the morning. Or my dogs do something.
How did I end up here?
Right turn. I'm like, okay, sweet tea. And all of a sudden, here you go. A year ago, I weighed 236 pounds after getting out of hospital. I'm like, now up to 275. So thank you, Bojangles. But to make the habit, you gotta break the habit. So now it's still, I do need a different right turn.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's probably the better way to say it. To make a habit, you have to replace a habit. Because that's the thing, like, we all already have habits. Habits fill our days, right? From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, every moment is a habit of something. Something. A reaction, a response to some type of cue. Okay? So if we need to change the outcomes that we're getting, we have to change what we do when those cues come. Instead of turning right into Bojangles, turn left into Planet Fitness or whatever it might be, you know?
And I think too, like, you gotta remember, this is where I fall with working out, with eating, with some of these health habits especially, is that, you know, there's no instant, like, I don't eat Bojangles, now I'm just grumpy, so I didn't have Bojangles, and plus, like, I don't have that instant six pack, so I'm like, barely see any, like, you know, like, what's the reward? And the book talks about, and gives a really good example of cancer, how cancer spends 80% of its time undetected. And then all of a sudden, it like pops up and it's typically bad, right? It's the same thing kind of with us. It's like a lot of times by making that choice every day not to go to Bojangles, it may take that time to get to, you know, your ideal weight or whatever you want, or at least a discipline where you don't really crave it.
Drive a different way to work.
We're driving different ways. They're not, you just gotta not give yourself that option because we're weak and we go towards, you know, past the least resistance,
Yeah.
but. Yeah,
I appreciate, yeah, I mean, everything was awesome. We appreciate you, Aaron, for just stepping up and leading
Yeah,
us the last 2
huge.
weeks. This was huge. There's you got some great nuggets for us to just take away. And
Yeah.
kind of lean into, never mind the beginning of the year and planning out goals and all this other stuff, but actually actionable things that we're all able to take away from the table. So we appreciate your time coming through. Adam, you want to close us out?
yeah, all right, Aaron, I think.
Oh, you got it, man.
did a great job last week.
I can do whatever you want me to do.
Yeah, I'll defer to you.
Lord, we love you. Thank you for this opportunity to meet these awesome people and just to share a little bit with them about, Lord, some things that I'm working on. I speak on these things like I know them, but just like everybody else, like these things that we want to do when we know that are good to do often are the most difficult things to implement in our lives. God, I just pray that as you have given us a vision for this abundant life that you have promised us in Christ, that you would give us the discipline, that you would give us the character, that you would give us the identity, first of all, in you. But then, as a result of being in you, the identity of doing the monotonous things that it will take for us to reach our goals to fulfill this vision that you have given us. And God, we know that we have some strong habits that need to be broken. Some productive, some very unproductive. We have some habits that need to be replaced, that need to be changed, that need to be eliminated. So God, as we navigate these waters and try to figure out these rhythms in our lives, God, I just pray that you would give us wisdom, that you would give us discernment, that you would help us to be kind to ourselves, and not beat ourselves up when something doesn't go the way that we think it should or the way we hoped it would. And that ultimately we would just live our lives to the best of our abilities to give glory to you as we are created in your image, and for your glory. We love you, Lord. Thank you again for these people in this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you all.
Yeah, I know, it's been a while.
I went to a high school first, I'm not down here.
Yes.
Yeah. Never down.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And my mom is from Newburgh. Oh, okay.
I love Ohio, I love everyone
Yeah.
else. I love the picture.
I can insert myself in.
You grew up in Marion? No kidding.
I was here early.
Guys everywhere.
We're down here.
Yeah. So,